In this section, you're going to learn how to create and modify styles using the Property Inspector as well as the CSS Styles panel. Specifically, you'll learn how to add class styles and tag styles to your pages. To get started, you'll want to open the events.html page located in your CSS Fundamentals folder. And here we can see a page that currently has some styles that have been applied. And before we start creating or modifying styles, just a quick review on how to identify the styles that have already been applied to a page. So for example, obviously this top heading has some sort of style applied. It's green, there's some font style as well, and the question is how can you figure out where the style is or what type of style it is, as well as the properties. There are a number of different ways to do this in Dreamweaver. In the CSS Styles panel, we can look at the All section and see the list of styles that have been used in this document. So H1, P, UL, which is the unordered list. So these are the three styles that we currently have in our page. Now these are technically called tag styles, and you'll look at this a little bit later. But if you click on the H1 style, you'll see the properties for that style. And another way to look at that might be the current CSS Styles tab. When you click on that, it will show you the selection of the current page, or the current selection. If you go down to your Properties panel and you click on the CSS tab, if it's not selected already, you can again see the targeted rule is the heading 1, and it shows you some information about that, but not all of it. There's actually a fourth way to identify styles that are associated with any object or element on the page, and that's called the Code Navigator. To see this in action, you can place your cursor over the heading 1 or simply click somewhere inside that heading 1 and let your cursor rest for a second. After a second or so, this Code Navigator icon will come up. If you click on that, you'll see a small pop-up screen, and this will show you any associated styles with the element that you've selected. So in this case, you're seeing that the H1 style is associated with that text. Now furthermore, you can place your cursor over the H1 and this yellow pop-up will appear, and that will actually show you the style properties, in this case font family and color. And there's actually one more layer. If you click now on that H1 style, you'll be sent directly into the internal style sheet where that style is located. This might be more useful for those who prefer to hand code in Dreamweaver, which is a growing population. But for the most part, you can decide whether or not you want this feature or not. And let me show you how to disable it if you do not like this Code Navigator. So I'm going to click back on the design view just for a moment. And then I'm going to place my cursor, again, somewhere over that heading. The Code Navigator pops up. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a checkbox that will let you disable the indicator. Now be careful. If you disable this indicator and then you want to bring it back at some point, you can always use this keyboard shortcut. On the Mac, Command-Option-Click to show. And on the PC, you'll see the equivalent keyboard shortcut as well. So keep that in mind. If you want to disable it, feel free. Just know how to bring it back. And there you have it. The next thing that you'll want to look at is how to create and modify styles using both the Properties Inspector first, and then we'll look at the CSS Styles panel. So let's look at Spring Events. Go ahead and select that entire text. Click on the HTML section of the Properties panel and realize that this is a heading 2. Now, if you click on the All section of the CSS Styles panel, we can see that there is no style for heading 2 yet. So this is standard practice. We like to style common elements on our page, such as heading 1s, paragraphs, heading 2s. So now we'll do the heading 2. Go down to your CSS Properties panel and choose Size 18. The second you do that, you'll be prompted to create a rule because there has been no style associated with heading 2s up to this point. Now, Dreamweaver prompts you to choose a selector. In this case, we're creating a tag selector. So click on that menu and choose Tag. Dreamweaver is pretty good about choosing the right tag. Of course, you can always change this if you want. So heading 2 should be selected. Click OK. So at this point, the heading 2 is now 18 pixels, And what this means furthermore is that all heading 2s on this page will also be 18 pixels. And you can see that by selecting this text, Rent Our Facility. Click on your HTML button in the Properties panel, and then choose Format, Heading 2. And now both of those have the exact same style. If we look in our CSS Styles panel, you can now see that that new style rule has been added. So here's the H2 right here. Now there are other types of styles. There's actually 3 types. So you're only going to look at 2 in this exercise. So the tag style was the first. The second is what's called a class style. So class styles are reusable styles. And you'll go ahead and you'll add a class style now by looking at this paragraph at the very bottom, or these 2 paragraphs at the bottom, for the copyright section. So what you'd like to do is create a reusable copyright section. So select this entire block of text by clicking and dragging, and then click on your CSS tab. And in this case, we'll make the copyright section a little smaller, because right now the style of this is being interpreted, or it's coming from the paragraph. And you can actually see that again with our friend the Code Navigator. If you click anywhere in that paragraph, so here's an example of when you would use the Code Navigator. It's telling us that the paragraph style is what's creating this particular style. Go ahead and select that again, and click on the CSS tab if necessary, and change the size from 14 to 10. So this is a new style, and Dreamweaver is prompting you to create a new rule. In this instance, we're going to use the default class option, and we're going to give this a name. Go ahead and call this copyright, and then click OK. So what you'll see now is that that text has obviously been made smaller because you told it to be 10 pixels. And we now are using a class style. Now, in a larger site, we could reuse that copyright, and I'll just show you how this works, even though it's maybe not a good idea to do this permanently. But if you select the paragraph above the copyright, and what you'd like to do is you'd like to apply a class to it, or apply that class to it. Click on the HTML tab, and notice that there's a section for class, and there's no class being applied. If you click on the menu, you'll only see this one option, copyright, and now you could apply the copyright class to that text above. So this is one of the benefits of classes. You can reuse them, and reusable objects or reusable styles can be very powerful, because at a later point you'll see how they're used for things such as layout, but really they can be used for anything on a page. Let's go ahead and disable or return that style to the original none style, and you can also see how this will work. Select that line above that you just applied the copyright class to. In the Properties panel, choose Class None. Now just one more thing that you'll take a look at quickly here. If you want to modify any of these styles, there's another way to do it. You can go into the CSS Styles panel, and you'll notice that the copyright class, of course, has been added. You can select that copyright class, and it tells you the font size here. If you double-click that copyright class inside the CSS Styles panel, it will launch a CSS rule definition window. And here is a window that will expose all of the different CSS styles that you can add. So for example, font size, maybe you'd like to make that even smaller. Maybe you'd like to make that 9. So you could select 9 and press apply, and you'll see how that changes on the page. Maybe you don't like that, you want to go back up to 10 or even 12. Pressing apply gives you a preview of that CSS style. Of course, you can add other CSS styles here as well. So color, for example. Perhaps you'd like to make that information black. So you can click on the color swatch, choose black, click apply, and you'll see how that is applied. So there's a number of different ways to create and modify classes in Dreamweaver. Primarily, you're working with either the CSS Styles panel or down below in the CSS or HTML properties. For now, you can click OK and make sure to save your file.